Okay, Boker Tov. Today's daf is Mem Aleph. We're a bit behind. We pick up on Mem Amud Bet, about 6 lines from the top. Imhaya Shemin Mizuka Keniyot Lo Shmarim. This is talking about if somebody is watching stuff, how much, and it's fruit or it's wine or it's oil, how much can he assume gets sort of eaten by the rats or absorbed by the vessels, so that he doesn't have to return the full amount that he received. And then it says similar discussions about if you're selling something, then how much sort of can you assume that there's going to be a lees by the wine, and so on. So it says that if the person entrusted to him pure oil without any of the dross or without any of the lees or whatever, then he does not get to deduct when he returns it the dross that's settled at the bottom, because there is no dross. So the Gemara says, "V'ha'iyaf should bala." And then it says v'chulei. V'chulei is an important word here, because then it's really on the second part of the Mishnah that says that if the vessels that they were stored in were old and had already absorbed wine or oil, then he has to return the full amount. He can't deduct the amount that was presumably absorbed by the walls of the vessel, because the vessels had already fully absorbed. So the Gemara doesn't believe that this is true, that they'll ever fully absorb and not be able to take in any more. So the Gemara says, it's impossible that they are not going to absorb something. Amar Rav Nachman bin Mizufafin. We're not talking about just that it's old, we're talking about the combination that it's old and that they are plastered on the inside. And the combination of that two will prevent them from absorbing any more. Even if that's not the case, keeping the tone, what the Mishnah is saying is right. Once it is like beladen, it's beladen. Once it's carrying all that oil in the walls, it's not going to absorb anymore. All right. If somebody agrees to sell pure oil to somebody, Michael, I'm going to sell you, a gallon of pure oil. You'll give me $10 for it now. You'll come in, you'll take it little by little. I'll keep a running track, right? Okay. So when I say a gallon, and then but I really don't have to give you a gallon. I really get to give you, this log. This sa'ah, it was a sa'ah, right? No, for 100 log, I get to deduct 1.5%. Because since basically if you had bought the whole thing, you would have gotten 1.5% shmarim of the lees. So when I'm selling it to you, and I'm giving it little by little, I'm giving you, and I'm agreeing to give you out the pure stuff, but it's understood that I'm only giving you 98.5% of the amount agreed upon, because you would have, if you had bought the whole thing at once, you would have gotten 1.5% of the shmarim, of the not pulp, whatever it's called. Yeah. Anyway, of the lees.
Only if you buy the whole gallon.
Well,
right. If I buy like a liter, like you do that proportionally.
Yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing. The funny thing about I presumably you do a proportion, but the funny thing about it is, what do you mean? We said a gallon of pure oil for this price, so that meant the full gallon. So somehow, right, there's some understanding that, if you would get it off my shelf, you would have gotten, it wouldn't have been 100, it wouldn't have been pure virgin olive oil, it would have just been olive oil with the lees, and I'm charging you the same price, but you don't have the money and you can't use it all at once. So somehow there's that understanding that since that's what you would have gotten if you would have bought the whole thing and walked home with it, then when you buy it little by little, I give it out to you, or when you buy it and I give it out to you little by little, that you don't get a better deal off of it. If anything, I should be charging more.
When you're buying from, the small producers.
Exactly.
It's not like us when we get these nice.
I understand. Let's take a look at the Gemara. Amar Bai. So what we're going to try to figure out is why the rabbis disagree. Okay, maybe this will help clarify it. Maybe not. Amar Bai. According to Rabbi Yehuda, if you're buying, let's say, a large amount in general, you would be you'd be permissible as the store owner to mix up into it all of the lees and to sell it non-pure. And according to the Chamim, you would not be allowed. And so how does that figure out? This is the Amarle, and this is the reason why you the buyer have to accept the fact that I'm not going to give you, that I'm going to only give you 98.5% of pure. The Amarle, because I say to you, look, even though you said you're buying pure, I really am entitled to mix up the dross with it. Okay, and then you would have gotten your 100 with the dross. Okay, so now I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to give it to you totally pure. pure. Hashanami kabil. So now too, take the 98.5% of it in pure oil, and take another 1.5%. Here's just some dross and some lees, and do with it whatever you want. Okay, so that's very reasonable because I could have sold the two all mixed up together. For the Lemele, let's 1 minute, but can't the purchaser say to him, Iarvik le having mistabinly? If you would have mixed it up or kept it mixed up and sold it to me with the dross in it, then I could go ahead and resell it to the next guy, and I would have 100 units to resell. Hashta my avidle luchude love mistabin. What am I going to do with 1.5 units of dross? Nobody wants to buy dross, so I only have 98.5 units to sell. So I actually that doesn't do me any good, assuming that the guy who's buying it is actually a reseller, right? So therefore, he says, I actually prefer it all mixed up because that allows me to sell it as 100 units. And by you separating it, it actually hurt my ability to resell the full amount. So the Gemara says, no. No, we're not talking about a reseller. We're talking about a homeowner. That he wants to get the pure oils. I actually did him a favor. I could have given you 100 units mixed up. You would rather have had, the dross removed. So fine. So you're going to get 98.5 units with the dross removed. Why doesn't the homeowner say to him, 1 minute, you're right, you could have, but you chose to be a nice guy. You chose to give it to me pure. So what you're basically doing, I'll read that as an implicit mechila. I'll read that as basically saying, you're prepared to give me the 100 units as pure oil. Okay, that's how I'm going to interpret it. If you would have been in your rights. But instead, you decided to give it to me pure. So fine, but we still agreed to 100 units. Very reasonable question. I learned this the hard way many years ago, that it never pays to be a nice guy. Like we moved into an apartment many years ago when we were in Florida, and we were in Boca for 2 years or so. And something about, I don't know, the landowner and the owner of the apartment, there was some problem with it. I forget what. Something with the ceiling and the fixture, this and that. Landlord, thank you. That's what I was looking for. Some problem with it, and we just figured it's so not worth the effort, whatever. And then finally, 6 months later, we decided to complain about it. And basically, it's too late. If you had a legitimate, the fact that you didn't make your complaint earlier means you basically waived your rights. So okay, that was a real lesson. You don't win by being a nice guy in terms of these things. Then we're just going to interpret it as a waiving of rights. So that's what it is. If you wanted to, fine, but you didn't. You gave it to me clean, so you have to give me still 100 units. Okay. Okay. So the Gemara says, so why don't we say that? Why do we say that you're still entitled to give it the 1.5 units of the dross? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi goes, it's according to reasoning, the leislei mechila. He doesn't hold that we read things as mechila. He sort of holds that we assume things based on the price that you paid, and we're going to interpret things to be consistent with that.
Where the standard market is, right?
Right. If you have a transaction and you say to a guy, I'm going to buy the yoke. Okay, so obviously, and you pay then the yoke doesn't mean that you would use to yoke 2 oxen together. It means only the yoke, not the cattle. Machalos a bakar, which is pretty obvious, I guess. But if you sold him the 2 cattle, you also didn't include the yoke in the deal. Fine. Rabbi Yehuda Omer hadami modim. Rabbi Yehuda said, wait. You have to also look at other things. You have to look at the amount of money paid. Somebody says, sell me your yoke for 200 zuz, like some of your yoke for $10,000. Okay, deal. Okay, so clearly the word yoke meant the 2 cattle's yoked together. Right. It did not mean the yoke. Come with the batteries. Right. Yeah. So however you do a shein at semed b'masayim zuz, nobody pays 200 zuz for a lousy yoke. Clearly he meant the 2 cattle's yoked together. Together. Oxen. Thank you. No, it's not a proof. Okay, so therefore we just
wanted a diamond encrusted yoke.
Yeah, who knows what you wanted. Okay, so because of Rabbi Yehuda basically says you look at the money. So now that's obviously a case where the money is like a great disparity. You would think the difference between paying for 98.5 units and 100 units is not a big deal, and then maybe we would read mechila. But the Gemara is never saying no. It's still saying no. The price for the 100 units with the dross was whatever. If you're giving him 98.5 units, we don't interpret that as mechila. We we interpret that as going to be consistent with the price.
So
you're
basically,
still
this is the Chachamim are
entitled
disagreeing.
to give, and the Chachamim would disagree on this point, and you would be entitled to give 98.5 units of pure oil with 1.5 units of the dross. Okay? Okay, so the Gemara says, "L'tivei Chachamim asalai reshmarim," and for the Chachamim, you're not allowed to mix up the dross. And that's why the guy is entitled to say, "I refuse to accept the dross. You have to give me 100 pure units." You say to him, if you had wanted even to sell me the whole amount with the dross, you would not be allowed. So here too, when I said 100 units, I meant 100 units of clean oil. Okay, that seems to be a pretty reasonable way of framing the debate. That the question is, if I would have sold it to you with a large amount all at once, would I have been able to sell it to you with the dross? If the answer is yes, then I'm only going to give you 98.5 units that have been filtered. If the answer is no, then I of course have to give you 100 units that are filtered.
So if you're buying a large amount, if I'm buying a cup of oil from you, you can't get 20%.
That's maybe. I mean, I don't know. It's possible. It's not spelled out. Amalei Rav Papa Labai. Rav Papa said to Rabbi, Adrabah, the opposite is the opposite means that. According to the Chachamim, if you had sold a large amount, you're generally allowed to mix it up. Okay, to mix up with the dross. So therefore, if that's true, why here do you have to give him 100 pure units? Here's why the guy does not have to accept 1.5 units of dross. Yeah, you could have. You were entitled to sell me 100 units with the dross. You chose to sell me pure units. Okay, so you implicitly were mochel your right to sell it to me with the dross. So therefore, so you have to give me 100 units. Okay, we look at what you did. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you're forbidden. So if you're forbidden, then why don't you have to sell 100 clean units? Behind your time at the Makabel, here's why the guy has to accept 1.5 units of the dross. If I would have wanted, the store owner say, if I would have wanted to sell you with the dross, I'm not allowed. So kibule lo mekabalta, you wouldn't have accepted it. So if you're not going to accept that, meaning you're just going to accept, the only thing I can do is sell you 100 pure units. If that's true, without sort of at least 98.5 because of the dross, which I'm not allowed to do, I can't sell you with the dross. So zavun v'zavin tigre, somebody who buys and sells at the same price, you call that guy a merchant, right? Where's my profit margin? Okay, so now the funniest thing is, what do you mean? Where's your profit margin? You just raise the prices from what you bought it at. So Tosfos says, for whatever reason, we have to assume that the scenario is, I don't know why, that the profit margin I make is basically by, somehow I buy 100 and I sell it at the same price I bought it for, but I only sell like the 98.5.
Exactly.
And I make the profit margin by not selling the 100 clean units, of course, so. Yeah, right. So I don't know. So somehow,
all you have left at the end is the leaves.
Yeah. So I don't know. Somehow that the profit margin is the fact that the barrel
may be again.
No, I don't think so. But somehow the idea is that let's go to the Tosfos because I really don't understand too. If you look at the Zavin v'Zavin Tigri, Marishal Mosi Linker Biyoker Yosem Yishalakcho. Somehow you can't buy it more than you sell for, or you can't sell for more than you buy for. And I hold back, 1.5 in order to. But if you're selling it pure and you're holding back 1.5 of the leaves, I don't know how much profit you're making. Maybe what you do is
wondering a minute before yesterday about not making 16 for.
I don't know. Maybe what you're doing is that you're buying 100 units of filtered, and when you're selling it, you're selling only 98.5 units of filtered, and that's your profit. But the reason you're entitled to still 98.5 is because you say it's like 100 units, because it's what 100 units would be if it had the dross in it. I don't really get it. It's quite funny because it's very nice that you're not making you're not making any profit. But what's the verbal agreement? If the verbal agreement is 100 units for this price, and the halacha is that you have to sell pure olive oil, you're not allowed to sell filtered olive oil. It's like, so you said 100 units. 100 units meant filtered. Meant pure. It did not mean if you had to sell pure, not with the dross. So and you said 100 units, so it meant 100 units of pure. So I really don't understand it. All right. Anyway, that's the point. That somehow it's implicit that 100 units doesn't mean 100 full units. It means 100 units. What that would be, given the reality that you're not allowed to sell it with the dross, which is 98.
They have the opposite with that case where you go into the shuk and then they top it off with one little extra half of a.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. We haven't seen that yet, but that's true. Okay. Tana, takim. the same halacha applies to the purchaser or to the one who is keeping the grain, right? Because they're both the point about how much can you deduct when you sell it to the person or when you return it to the person, like the dross or the amount that gets absorbed or whatever. So they have the same halacha when it comes to the pkatim. What are the pkatim? So Rashi says that it is the dirt or the dross that comes from the seeds, not the seeds themselves specifically, because we spoke about the shmarim already. When you come to selling oil, okay, so it creates cloudy oil as opposed to before we talked directly about the seeds themselves. So what does this mean? My lip katim, if it means similar to this discussion before about the wine, whatever, or the oil, that the same way the purchaser does not have to accept the dross, according to, I guess, the chachamim. So therefore, if you're keeping the oil, you don't get to deduct, this dross or whatever. So the Gemara says, so what does it mean? Because why can't you basically say to him, what am I supposed to do, with this dross? So, okay, so the Gemara says, okay, 1 minute. 1 minute. Right, what am I supposed to do with your, right, meaning the basic point being why do I have to remove your pkatim and return to you, the stuff hold on. I'm not sure I'm getting this. 1 minute.
I'm holding your oil.
What? Yeah, I mean, I don't exactly understand the words of the Gemara, but I think it's basically the same point of the Mishnah. The same point of the Mishnah is that you're always entitled to give back the amount minus sort of the dross. So here too, right? If you're the person watching the object, right, you always give it back minus the dross. So here also, why should you not be entitled to give it back minus the dross? Except I just don't get how that fits into the words. What am I supposed to do with your dross? But anyway, the same way in the normal case of the mafkid, basically, you the owner have to accept you're getting it back. You have to accept that it's sort of minus the dross. So So therefore, when you purchase it, you have to accept that you're getting it minus, as it were, the dross. So similar to the discussion before, that you're getting it minus the lees, at least according to Rabbi Yehuda. I get to hold back the amount that it would sort of the lees here too. You get to hold it back.
It makes sense. Like if I'm giving you my oil to watch,
right,
and you're gonna give it back to me,
right.
I can't say I gave you the scum when I get whatever.
You give it back to me without the scum.
Give it back to me without. It's not
right.
You don't get to make money off of.
Exactly. I just didn't understand the exact phrasing of what am I supposed to do with the scum. But yes, right. That's the point. If you give it back to me clean, then it's minus the amount of the scum. That's what we've seen consistently about the pikadon. That obviously, if that's the amount that's sort of not being returned, I reduce that amount. But the question is in the case of the purchase. So the Gemara says, the same way in the mafkid, of course, if you give it to me and I return it to you minus the scum, then I don't have to give you the extra amount of the volume of the scum. So here too, in the case of a purchase, if you buy 100 units and there's 1 unit of the scum, then I really only give you 99 units. Okay, so which is similar to discussing before about the shmarim. So the Gemara says, "Umi mekabel lokeh pkatim." Is that really true that you have to accept that? So basically, when you said this idea about cloudy oil, so the loss of that cloudiness, has to be absorbed by the seller. Because when we said that, the lokech takes, Rabbi Yehuda's own position, that said that if I buy 100 units, I have to take 98.5 of clean minus 1.5 of the shmarim. He basically says, okay, so the purchaser, as it was, takes the loss of the 1.5 shmarim. Okay, he gets the 98.5 units, not 100 units. But the seller doesn't get to deduct more for the cloudiness of the oil. All right, so that's how
Why
it
not?
reads. I don't know. It's only the seller absorbs that loss. Below pkatim. That minus 1.5 includes the assumption of that it's going to be clean, not just not going to have the leaves there, but not have the cloudiness.
You actually don't take a loss.
What?
You actually don't take a loss because you will have pure oil.
Right, that's the funny
cloudy
thing.
oil.
I don't understand this at all. Like, why doesn't the market just adjust?
Oil when it comes out fresh pressed,
Uh-huh.
stays for a couple of days, and it sets up.
And then it
clean
settles.
oil,
Right.
and the rest
Goes to the
all
bottom.
Different material
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
left over.
Right. So okay, so once that separates is exactly sort of what we're dealing with. But the point is that Rabbi Yehuda is saying that 1.5 units includes the dross here. I mean, it includes the cloudiness. So the Gemara, it's not a separate cheshbon. So the Gemara says lo kasha. Anyway, I don't get this obviously 100%. How do you Again, very good. Okay, did he pay for the money in Tishrei and then he's taking it in Nisan? Kimida de Tishrei. Based on the amount that money would have bought in Tishrei, okay? In Tishrei, the prices are lower. So if you pay me for the what? It's the hard time of the harvest. Yeah, exactly. And Rashi says some other reason, I think. No, by Nisan already, since it's the time of the harvest, the stuff is cloudier. And by Nisan, presumably, by then people have filtered it, or as Joe was saying, the stuff has separated naturally or whatever. Okay, so therefore the prices are lower in Tishrei. The prices in Tishrei more reflect the reality that the stuff is cloudy and has the shmarim and so on. So if I pay the Tishrei prices and I get it in Nisan, so Kimida de Tishrei based on the prices, based on the amount that the money would have bought me in Tishrei, so then obviously, then the seller that gets the right to hold back, that amount. But if I'm paying Nisan prices and I'm getting it in Nisan, then the prices basically reflect the reality that I'm getting filtered wine and not unfiltered wine. So thankfully, the Gemara finally here sort of says, look, what are you buying? Are you buying unfiltered wine? Are you buying filtered wine? If you're buying filtered wine and the guy is selling, then he doesn't have a right to not give you the full number of units. If you're buying unfiltered wine, maybe he does. Why this only becomes an issue with the cloudiness and not with the shmarim, I don't know. So I don't really fully get this. Yes.
Isn't this, maybe this is oversimplifying. Like you go to the grocery store and you want to buy vegetables.
Yeah.
You want to buy a pound of beets at a certain, even though the greens, let's say, are
Right.
useless.
Right.
Right. They'll never allow you to cut the greens off
Yeah,
first and then weigh the beets.
But in a rational
You have to.
market, they charge a different amount. If you buy the portobello caps as opposed to if you buy the whole portobello, they charge more per pound.
Right.
So,
they'll adjust
all
it.
right,
That's it.
exactly.
Just
So
adjust it.
let the market adjust here. I don't really understand this. All right, let's keep on going. Okay. Now it's thankfully are switching gears to something that's a little more conceptual and a little less understanding about the markets in Eretz Yisrael and Bava. Okay. So I go ahead and I put my barrel of wine or oil, whatever, to Michael's house. Michael, watch this barrel for me. And I don't tell you we're going to keep it right here in this corner of your basement. Put it wherever you want, okay? The tiltal of an ishtabra, and Michael is moving it around at some point, and it breaks. Now, let's say it broke while he was still handling it. If he's moving it for his own convenience, okay, which could mean a couple of things. Could mean he wants to steal it, wants to sit on it, it's in the way, he's got to move it around, he's got to move some furniture, okay, something sort of serving his needs, then he's chayav. Litzarcha patur. If he's moving it for his own sake to protect it, or some other reason, then he's doing his job of a shomer. He's patur. So litzarcha somehow
It's not considered pshia.
Litzarcha is not pia. Litzarcha is taking care of it. Litzarcha, when Michael is doing it for his own needs, that somehow makes him, as we'll see, doesn't make him a gazlan, doesn't make him a shaleach yad, doesn't make him a shalo b'rishus. It does something for him. Maybe the example I gave of litzarcha that he just wants to get it out of the way for furniture is not the best example. Litzarcha has probably a better sense of he wants to somehow use it for himself. We'll see more in the Gemara. Okay. But if after he put it back down it broke, whatever liability he had because he was using it for his own needs, if he returns it, then he is done. He's returned the object to the owners. Now that's when it didn't have a particular place. Okay. If the owners designated a particular place, and then he moved it, Ma'arecha, whether he's still handling it or whether he's back, clearly, again, if he's moving it for his own needs, that's the job of a shomer. But if he somehow is taking it for his needs, so he's to some degree a gazlan, again, we'll see more about this in the Gemara, taking my object for his own needs, and putting it back is not considered returning it to the owner. Now that's a little strange. Why isn't putting it back? If you put it back without there being a specific place, it's returning it. Putting it back with a specific place should surely be returning it. I'm going to ruin the suspense and tell you that the Gemara is going to say that the reason you're putter in the second case is because you didn't put it back in the same place. If you put it back in the same place, what? You're chayiv because you didn't put it back in the same place. If you had put it back in the same place, then you actually would be putter, would be like the first case of the Mishnah. You would have returned it to the owner. All right, let's take a look at the Gemara. How many Rabbi Yishmaeli? The first part of the Mishnah that says once you let go of it, once you put it back, or put it down, your putter is Rabbi Yishmael. You don't need the owners to be aware when you've returned an object that you've stolen from them. You just return it and you're exempt from your obligation. The Tani, we taught in the Brisa. Somebody steals a sheep from the flock or a coin from the wallet. Return it back to where you stole it from, and you're done. You don't even have to tell the owner. That's what Rabbi Yishmael said. No. You have to let the owners know. So here, basically, taking it for your own needs makes you a type of a gazlan. We'll specify exactly what type in a minute. Okay, and so put it back anywhere, and you're done. So according to Rabbi Yishmael, why is it limited to the idea? All right, you know what? No comments. We have a half hour. If according to Rabbi Yishmael, what does it have to do with not having a designated place? Even if it has a designated place, you should be allowed to return it to the designated place and be putter. So the Gemara says, no, Lomi Baya Kama. The first part of the Mishnah says it goes without saying, meaning we're ignoring the second part of the Mishnah. We're pretending as if all we had was the first part of the Mishnah. And when it says Lo Yichtu, we didn't mean only Lo Yichtu. We really meant every case. Lomi Baya Kama. Lomi Baya Yichtu de Makoma, who not only if you have a designated place and return it to the designated place, are you putter, Elafilu Lo Yichtu, but even if you didn't have a designated place, so what defines returning it, right? That really makes a lot of sense. If there's no designated place and you took it to use it for yourself, I would say you can't define it like you've returned it now. Now you're totally a gazlan with it. So the Gemara says, no, even in that case, there's not like you can't as easily say you returned it. Once you've decided you're going to start watching it again, not use it anymore for yourself, that's returning it. So if you only had the Reisha, you would say it's Rabbi Yishmael, and you're putter because even without a specific place, it's like you returned it. Now let's look at the second part of the Mishnah. If there is a designated place, and you moved it and it broke, you're chayiv even if you returned it. Also, Rabbi Akiva, that's going to Rabbi Akiva, that you need the owner's knowledge, and that's why you'll remain liable. If it's Rabbi Akiva, why do you only remain liable if there's a designated place? Even without a designated place, you remain liable. So the Gemara again says, looking at the sefer without the rate. Lomi baya kamer goes without saying. Lomi baya lo yichdu delav mekomahu. It goes without saying that if you didn't designate a place, you cannot really return it because there's no place to return it to. Elafilu yichdu, even with a designated place, nami de mekomahu. Even if you really returned it to its right place, you remain liable. So the Gemara says a very reasonable thing that without a designated place, it's harder to return it. Okay, and then you really have a contradiction in the Mishnah. The beginning that had no designated place and it's harder to return it says you're exempt. The sefer that has a designated place and it's easier to return it says you're chayav. So the Gemara basically says the Reish is Rabbi Yishmael that you're exempt by returning without the owners knowing, and the sefer is Rabbi Akiva that you remain that you're chayav if the owners don't know. Okay, that's crazy. The Mishnah seems to be distinguishing between designated and not designated, and we're really saying that it's two contradictory opinions. 1 minute. So the Gemara says. Reisha, Rabbi Yishmael, the Sefer, Rabbi Akiva. The beginning is Rabbi Yishmael, and the end is Rabbi Akiva. You're telling me this Mishnah is not really distinguishing between designated and not designated. It's really just having two contradictory opinions. And yes, Rabbi Yochanan said, if you can explain to me this Mishnah of Chavit according to one opinion, so I will personally bring your clothes for you to the bathhouse. Okay, I'll be your attendant for the day. I'll be your attendant for the day. Like if you could just explain to me how to make sense of this Mishnah, because for Rabbi Yochanan, clearly lo yichdu lo about without a designated place, it's harder to return it. And the beginning of the Mishnah says that you're more exempt. Okay, now the answer that the Gemara is going to say is that the difference is that in the Seifa, you didn't return it to its designated place. If you returned it to its designated place, you'd be putter. The key point missing from the end of the Mishnah is that you did not return it to the place
Well, it
that
just begs
was
the question.
designated. Yes.
Didn't we have in Bava that you couldn't use the money that was deposited with you for other purposes? Here, actually, you're doing that, and then you're returning it. Say you want to use the money.
Right. Well, so what's I don't understand the point. But
You
you're not allowed
Oh,
to.
you're not allowed to, right?
You're not allowed to, which is why you're a ganav.
But
Which
here
is
you're saying if you return it to the place.
right. You weren't allowed to. You're a ganav,
Right.
and now you're putter because you're returning the money.
So
Okay.
then you could have used it.
No, you couldn't. If I steal something out of your wallet,
Right.
okay, was I allowed to do that?
As long as you-
No.
but I returned
Now,
it.
when I return it, am I still liable for it? No. So the fact that my liability ends doesn't mean that I was allowed to do it. It's just at what stage does my liability end?
Okay.
Right?
So the practical.
If I steal a sheep from your pen, was I allowed to?
No.
No. Okay, according to Rabbi Shmuel, a day later I would put it back. Does that end my liability?
Yes.
Yes. Does that mean I was allowed to do it? No.
No, but what was the punishment? Or what was the?
Okay, that's a big problem we've had from the beginning, that people can steal and they don't get any punishment. The worst punishment is they have to give it back. Okay. All right. So now the Gemara says like this. Okay. So anyway, we've got this contradiction because we assume the Seifa means that you returned it to its designated place, and there's more reason to be exempt in the Seifa. So the Gemara says like this. So Targuma Rabbi Yaakov bar Abba Kamid Rav Shenat Lamanas Lagos. Now, what the Gemara is going to do now is going to actually not finish the answer. We're going to have a couple of them arrive that are going to try to give an answer, and the key to the answer is what I've been saying. In the Seifa, you did not return it to the right place, and that's why you remain liable. But before we get to that, which is the key part of the answer, they're going to first describe why was the act of taking it an act that gave you liability in the first place? Why is taking it for your own purpose? What does that make you to make you now liable for anything that's going to go wrong until you're considered to have returned it? Okay, and we're going to stop and figure that out, and then we're going to go back and explain that key point in the Mishnah. Okay? Yes. So the Gemara says like this. Okay. Targum Rav Nassim bar Abba coming to Rav. So Rav Nassim bar Abba explains this in front of him. I'm sorry, skip line. Targum Rav Yaakov bar Abba. No, I didn't. Coming to Rav. Shenat lamanas lugosla. You picked up the barrel. You figured I'm going to steal it. Oh, this guy left it to me. Great. I'm going to just take it. I'll use it for myself. I have some guests. We're going to drink from it or whatever. Just whatever. I'm just going to take it, mix it in with my barrels. Terrific. And then you had remorse. Okay, so you're a goslin. Targum Rav Nassim bar Abba Kamed Rav. Now Rav Nassim bar Abba said in front of Rav, Shenat lam nasi shoch bo yad. Your intention was not to take the whole thing for yourself. It was just to sholeach yad, which means to cast your hand against it. What is that difference? So there are three categories here, which is important to lay out. And sometimes there's a question exactly which falls in what. To take it means I'm going to totally take it for myself. We know what goslin is. Okay, sholech yad means I'm going to use it for myself, but not just use as stam. If I was going to use it for myself, you left me a barrel and I was going to climb on it to get something that was at the top shelf of my, whatever. That's a shoel shalomidas. That's not a sholeach yad. I shouldn't be using it, but I'm borrowing it, but I'm not borrowing it in any way that actually is like mechaser it. Okay, sholeach yad is an intention to use it in a way that actually is mechaser it. So a classic example is you gave me this barrel of wine. I'm not planning to take the whole thing, but I am planning to take a little bit from it. Okay, so I pick it up in order to take a little bit. So I'm not a goslin. I'm not just a shoel. I'm not just using the barrel. I'm actually taking from it. So classic shlichus yad is an attempt to take it and not to take full possession of it, but to sort of use it in a way that is mechaser. Okay, so those are the three scenarios. We're going to be dealing with all three. All right, we're going to have a later Mishnah about shlichus yad. What?
Three.
Zela, shlichus yad, and shola shalom.
So Zela is the whole thing.
Zela is take the whole thing for myself and not even use it now. Just take it and put it with the rest of my
So it's
barrel.
not called Zela if I want to use some of it.
It is, but shlichus yad is makes you, because I wanted to use some, I'm chayav for the whole thing. Okay, and there's an interesting question, not to too much sort of tell you what's coming up, but let's say you give me a bag full of apples, okay, and I pick up the bag to take one apple. Am I a sholeach yad on the whole bag, or am I a goslin on one apple? Okay, but if you've got something which is not separate units, like wine, and I pick up the whole barrel to take a little bit of the wine, I'm a sholeach yad on the whole barrel. All right, is that pretty clear, those differences? All right, let's take a look. So the Gemara says like this. Okay, so one says goes on, the other says I'm not shoch by yad. So b'may kamiflagi, what are they debating? B'shlichus yad tzricha chisaron. At what stage are you chayiv? Are you liable for damages when you are intending to be sholeach yad? You actually have to, actually be mechaser. The context is you're intending to be mechaser, but does it have to get to the point that you actually took some wine out of the barrel, or is it enough that you picked it up with that intention? Okay, Manda Amarli goes law, the one that says that in order to make you liable, because the Mishnah never said that you actually took the wine out of the barrel. So the one that says you're only liable if you plan to steal it, because you wouldn't be chayav for intending to take the wine unless you had taken some of the wine. And the Mishnah never said that you actually had taken and drunk some of the wine. So therefore, in our Mishnah, the only way you're liable is if you plan to take the whole barrel. No, intending to take some of the wine is enough, even if you've not taken anything, and therefore you could be chayiv on the whole thing, even if you weren't planning on stealing the whole thing, even if you were only planning on taking a little bit of wine from it. Okay, so now that's why you're liable. We still haven't explained the Reish and the Seif of the Mishnah. Rav Sheshes challenges. Midi not laktani. The Mishnah doesn't say you were nota, which means like you picked it up. Okay, because whether to be a gazan, we already know from Bava Kama, to be a gazan, you have to do an act of a kinyan. So you'd only be chayiv if you lifted up the barrel. Also, shlichus yad is also, you're only chayiv if you do an act of a kinyan. If I go to Michael's barrel of wine that's sitting in my room, in my thing, and I turn on the spout and I get a glass from it, and I drink the glass, I am a goslin on that glass. By the way, if you want a fourth scenario, if I turn the spout and I let it spill, I'm a mazik on the wine. If I turn the spout and I take a glass, I'm a goslin on that glass. But I'm not a sholeach yad on the whole on the barrel. For me to be a sholeach yad on the whole barrel, it's like gzeila. I have to pick up the whole barrel with the intent to use some of the wine. Okay, so picking up the whole barrel to take it is a goslin. Picking up the whole barrel, doing a kinyan, dragging would not count. It's not a masa kinyan. Picking up the whole barrel with the intent to use some of the wine is a sholeach yad. And then the question is, do I have to actually use the wine to be liable or just intending to do it? All right? So therefore, I can't be a goslin, I can't be a sholeach yad if I didn't pick it up. So what am I? So he says, midi, not look tani. He doesn't say you picked it up. Tiltu look tani, you moved it. Elamar of Sheshes, you moved it in order to get some pigeons, meaning you moved it over to your bookshelf in order to get some book that's on a high place in your bookshelf. You moved it as a ladder. So you're not a goslin because you didn't do a ma'aseh kinyan. You're not a sholeach yad because you didn't do a ma'aseh kinyan. What you are is a shoah shalom midas. You are using somebody's object without their permission, and therefore you're liable. Even now, there's a debate: is shoah shalom midas a goslin or a shoel? But even if we're going to say goslin, but even if you're only a shoel is liable for damages. A shoel is liable for own sin, right? A shoel is liable for anything that happens. Okay, but the Gemara is going to say goslin. 1 minute. The kasava shoel shalom midas goslin have, and he's of the opinion that a shoel shalom midas is a type of a goslin, and therefore, you're fully liable until you return it, and then it's like you stole the object, and now you returned it to its original place, and now you are exempt. Okay, and now that we've got 3 possibilities of in the Mishnah why taking it makes you liable. You're either a goslin in some scenarios, you're a sholeach yad in other types of scenarios, and you're a sholeach shalom midas in yet a third type of scenario. But one of those cases, you are liable, and now the question is, when do you get exempt? And here's how the Mishnah reads: the Kula Rabbi Shmuel, the entire Mishnah is Rabbi Shmuel. The safe, so we know why in the ratio your pata you returned it. Okay, you don't need das baalim. The seifa, so why you chayv in the end? When it says why are you chayv in the end? Because you returned it not to its designated place. Yes, with a designated place, it's easier to be putter if you returned it to the right place. The reason in the Mishnah it says with a designated place you're chayav is it's a scenario that you did not return it to the designated place. Rabbi Yochanan. Now, why would Rabbi Yochanan not accept that answer? It's a good way of answering it. Another way of saying, did Rabbi Yochanan now go ahead and take the the clothes of whoever it was to the bathhouse? Did he buy that answer? No, he did not buy that answer. So he says, when it says you put it back, you put it down, presumably it means in the place you took it from. So the Mishnah does not make sense because he assumes you put it back in the same place, and then there's more reason to be exempt when it has a designated place than when it doesn't. But that's the pshat of the Mishnah. When is it considered like you've returned it and your liability ended? But this now is opening up for us what, an earlier question, which in some ways I think, they're both interesting conceptual questions, but the question about when does your liability begin? What type of act makes you a gazan, a shaleach yad, or a shoel shalom midas? Yes.
I just want to make sure I understand this. Let's say you mean forget about Bava, a cow.
Yeah.
Your cow, I'm watching your cow. I don't move it. I go over and I milk it.
right?
Right. So what am I now?
Well, you're a goslin on the milk. Are you you're not a sholech yad and you're not a goslin on the cow. Are you a shalomi das on the cow? You might be, although we'll see about that. I'll say something about that in a minute. Okay. So, but you're certainly not a goslin or a sholech yad. All right. Exactly when you don't become a shalomi das is a good question because, right? Why are you, So I'm going to address that in a minute. It's going to come up. Yeah.
If you want to show and you move the barrel to climb on top of it.
Yes.
I have to ask it.
No, the act of moving it to climb on top of it makes you a shalomi das. You are borrowing it without permission. You borrow my thing without permission, you're liable.
Doesn't that something need to be the case that you're a shomer for the other?
Correct. You just come into this room and you take this chair and you go ahead and you use it and it breaks, you were shalomi das and you're liable.
As long as I return it, I'm okay.
Right.
Yeah, but if I go down to the kitchen and take someone else's mug and pour myself a cup of coffee.
Yeah, you're also shalomi das.
It's not. I'm not a goslin on the.
Correct. Did you plan on keeping the mug?
No.
So then you're not a
Wash it and
goslin.
put it back.
Okay, right. Okay. All right. So now the Gemara says like this. Okay. Now Itmar, Rav and Levi. Now we get to discuss this issue. Okay, debate of Rav and Levi. Using something again with the intent somehow to take from it, okay, not to take the whole thing, but to take from it. Shlichus yad, do you actually need to take from it in order to be liable, or just the taking with that intention it makes you? Okay, now by the way, shlichus yad is a concept only by Shom. To get back to you, Gzela, mazik, shalomi das. That could be by object, whether it whether you have a prior relationship to the object or not. Sholeach yad is a violation, is a specific liability of a shomer and a violation of your liability as a shomer. Okay, so the Gemara says like this. Rav Levi, you're only fully liable for the object when you actually mechaser. Intent is not enough. It's not required. And Rav is the one. Let's conclude that Rav is the one who says that even without being mechaser, you're liable. The time you turn the brisa. Rosh Roa Edro. He was watching a kivakarat roa edro, right? A shepherd was watching his flock. V'iniach edro, and he left it. Ubal ear, and he went came to the town. Ubaz evetarav, ubal rividaras, and a wolf came and tore the animals, or a lion came and it consumed them. The difference between taraf is that it kills it and takes it away, as opposed to a lion that presumably kills it and eats it there. Anyway, patur, he's exempt. Now, why is he patur? What do you mean? He abandoned the flock. So the basic point that a different Gemara is going to say, which is not our interest right now, is he went back when it was break time. Okay, so if there was a standard break time that was accepted amongst shepherds, at noon you're allowed to go into the town and get yourself some lunch and come back, and that's when it happened, then he's not liable for going and getting lunch during lunchtime. Fine, that's not our interest. Our interest is the next part. Let's say he left his staff and his a pouch on it. Okay, chayiv. He's chayiv because leaving his pouch on the animal makes him to some degree something on the animal, a goslin, a sholech yad, something. Okay, because he was using the animal for his usage, right? Now, the most obvious thing to say is, if I ask you which of those categories would you put that in? Goslin, sholech yad, or shalomi das, putting your stuff, your staff in your pouch on the animal. What? Shalomi das, right? You didn't try to take it for yourself. You were just using it. It's like using the bale to stand on. The funny thing here is the Gemara completely ignores that possibility, which is the simplest read. So close. So Rashi has some funny explanation that you can't be a shalomi das on animals. Nobody really understands what Rashi is talking about. The Ramban says what James said to some degree. He said, to be a shalomi das, I have to some degree, pervert it from its natural path. Like in this case, he says, the sheep is still there with all the other sheep. It's going out, it's grazing. I have not somehow taken it away from the owner in any sense of the word. It's totally doing what it's supposed to be doing right now. Okay? So if there's a concern that I might be mechaser it, that maybe is a different story, right? Let's say, your chair was right there. And, you brought your chair into my room. It was right there, and I needed to stand on it to reach something from the top, right? Would I be a shalomi das if I just sat on it, right? That to show Shalom Midas to be liable required to some degree taking it away from where it's supposed to be. Okay, so that's sort of like the issue that the Ramban raises. It could be that if there's a concern that I might damage it, maybe it might. Anyway, so for some reason we are ignoring Shoah Shalom Midas. That's what the Ramban says. I did not somehow take it away from the owner in any meaningful way. Okay, so we don't know then why I'm chayiv. So let's take a look. So the Gemara says, just because you put your staff on it, you're chayiv? Hashaklinu. Presumably after you put it on, you removed it. So isn't that sort of like, whatever you were, a gazlin, a sholech yad, maybe this is like returning it to the owners. And anyway, what were you to begin with? So no, you didn't return it. You're still on it. You left it on it while you went to town to get lunch. You left your staff on it. Okay, still, what does it make you? So what? Big deal. The Gemara assumes that you're not, because remember, if we no longer have the option of Sholeach Shalom Midas, the only thing you could be is a Gazlin or a Sholeach Yad. Now, what did I tell you needed to do to be a Gazlin or a Sholeach Yad? You needed to do a Kinyan. You needed to pick it up. Okay, putting your staff on it is not a Kinyan. All right? So the best answer would have been Sholeach Shalom Midas, but for some reason, as we said, that's not an option. So you have to now have done a Masa Kinyan. So therefore, we're still, why you chayav?
Well, with the Shlichut Yad also, there's no Chisaron, right?
Well, that's a separate issue, but we can't even get off the ground until there's a Masa Kinyan.
Oh, that's good.
Okay? You didn't draw it. You didn't do a Masa Kinyan. If our only option here is Shlichus Yad, so yeah, you actually did hit it in order to, that you were saying somehow, the idea that's conceptually shlichus yad is you're making use. What's your use? You're going to take it to put your staff on it. In order to take it to put your staff on it, I don't know, you hit it. It's like a funny thing to run in order that therefore now it'll be next to you so you can put your staff on it.
If you leave it, where else be right?
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing. Isn't a shepherd generally like leading his sheep?
Yeah,
I guess when they're out grazing,
a shepherd leads from behind.
Yeah, so I was wondering that too.
You just want to put your stuff on it.
Yeah, somehow you drew it towards you, you hit it towards you, so now you can put your stuff on it. That's somehow the idea. And the chiso, so you're sholeach yad to use it. You're taking it to use it. Okay, so the Gemara says, there's no chisaron. So you're sholeach yad without chisaron in your chayav. So you see, since Rav gave that answer, so we created this very complicated case to be a shlichus yad with a Masa Kinyan, but there's no chisaron. So you see, Rav doesn't need chisaron for shlichus yad.
Well, he didn't pick it up, by the way. What kind of kid is a Mashiach? You don't have to pick it up.
So I didn't mean little bit. You have to do Masa Kinyan. No, you have to do Masa Kinyan, right? So the Gemara says, no, not necessarily. Maybe that there was a chisaron. Maybe I gave it a good hit with the thing. So that tiny little chisaron that I don't know got a bruise or something.
Yeah.
That's considered a chisaron. Why did it say that you hit it? Why didn't it just say that you let it? You verbally let it or something like that? Shma mina, which is a pretty bad deal, but okay. So the Gemara, as Tosa says, very often when we talk about Mashiach, we talk about hitting it. It's not to make a point about Chisara. So this is conceptually very hard because, again, classic Shlichus Yad is I'm using something and I'm planning on taking a little something away. Here, and the question is, do I actually have to take it or not? Here, even if I did a Masa Kinyan, I drew it towards me. It's not to keep it. It's in order to make use of it. Okay? But in order to make use of it with what's the exact thing I'm taking from you? Meaning the natural way to think about this is, again, like a Sholeach Shalom Midas. What am I taking from you? But it would be an interesting case of, let's say when you use something, you slightly damage it, okay? So that would be the question of, is that's a type of, when I take the wine, the way I'm a chaser and I'm a Sholeach Yad, is I have a whole barrel, I'm taking a little wine. But let's say instead, I've got, I don't know, what would be a good example of something?
Nothing is the same after you use it.
Right. I took your brand new shoes, okay? They have no scuff marks on the bottom or whatever, right? And I just put them on to walk across the street, okay? So that would be another case of a chisara.
Never the same.
Okay? So the little damage that everything gets a little worn, a little bit. The coffee cup, I know. Anyway, so that would be a similar scenario of shlichus yad. And does it actually have to be used in a way which causes the chisara? So here too, the animal got a little bit hit, That was a little chisaron. But again, in most of those scenarios, you're going to say you're going to be a shosh shalom das before you're mechaser it, which is why the Ramban has to figure out why in this particular scenario it didn't pervert from its normal sort of location enough to be a shosh shalom das. Do you have a question?
What this word hikisha? What does that mean?
To hit.
That's hikiha. Or
Oh, I don't know.
what's the
No,
sheen?
Keisha
What's
means
the
also.
sheet?
This
I don't
word
know.
they're translating as weaken.
No, that's when you put the chet in it. So he chisha b'maka, but it's a word of the word hikisha.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but a hikisha just means I don't know where, but it means to hit. Did you have a? I don't know. Yeah.
So once it's shlichut yad, we don't care about the fact that he's given it back by.
No, we do. This is the mission is you could still give it back even after shlichus yad. These are just 3 different paths to be liable. But then after you gave it back, whatever is considered giving it back, you'd be exempt. But this guy, he hid it, he used it, he went to the town, right? And so there was now again, what would be considered?
If you're hitting.
No, it said Odin Olav. Some.
But that's not, if you're hitting a sheep with a stick.
Yeah.
We've changed it to instead of placing it on a.
Yeah, so Tosfos tries to combine the two, and he says that you place it on real hard, that made it move. It's a weird reinterpretation of the case. Okay. The other thing is, what's considered returning it? It's standing there with the rest of the flock, right? Is it because I have it off to the side here? Like it's very hard to understand the scenario. Let's not, let's not overly agonize over it. Because, I mean, I don't think there's a good answer. Okay, but anyway, those are our 3 categories. So now the Gemara says like this. And since Rav says it requires, Levi Savar Shlichus Yad ain't a tzricha chisara. It doesn't. My time with Levi. What's the reason of Levi? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Yossi ben Hurai, meaning presumably the phrase Shlichut Yad seems to be some sense of actually incursion into it, which suggests chisara, not just suggest an intention. So what's the reason of Levi? So what has to be defended is the opinion that it doesn't require chisara. So what's that logic? Okay, so he says, and now we're going to spend the rest of the time really looking at the psukim. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yossi ben Hurai Mishum Shlichus Yad Amor B'Shomer Sacha Mishlichus Yad Amor B'Shomer Chinam. That it basically is like repeated, or it's different. The time it says Shomer by both Shomer Sacha and by Shomer Chinam, it says that you take an oath. V'nikrav Balabais El Elohim Im Lo Shalach Yado B'Imlechas Re'ehu. Okay, that you take an oath, basically, you come to court to clarify that you were not Sholeach Yad. And it says it both by a Shomer Chinam and by a Shomer Sachar in the Torah. And it says they're different. Well, now what by different means is it means somehow that, it said it a second time, and therefore the second time is to tell you don't need a Chisara. Okay? So the first one you needed to tell me, but the second one you didn't. The second one was different than the first, and the only thing it's doing there is to tell me you don't need a chisaron. So let's take a look. The Gemara will spell that out. Okay, V'ani Omer, and I say Eina Meshuna. No, it's not different. They both are needed. Okay, my Meshuna. What does it mean? It's different. Lo Tomer Shlichus Yad B'Shomer Sachar. The Torah didn't have to say it by a Shomer Sachar. The tasting of Shomer Chinam, I could have learned that from Shomer Chinam. Uma Shomer Chinam shepatu b'gnei v'aveda. The Shomer Chinam has a low level of liability. He's exempt if it gets stolen or lost. Shalach b'yad chayev, and the Torah says that if he's shalech yad, he's liable. So Shomer Sacha shechay b'gnei v'aveda. Shomer Sacha's liability starts off as higher. Okay, lo kol shekain. Certainly, if he was shalech yad, he'd be chayev. Why did the Torah then also write shlichus yad by Shomer Sachar? I tell you, shlichus yad ain't a tzricha chisaron. That there's a second category. That shlichus yad is even broader than you would have imagined. It doesn't even. You don't even need to be to take anything away from the object. That's his opinion. And I say ain't a meshuna. It's no different. Rabbi Linzer, Amar Davida Achasi. It's all one. My Davida Achasi. What does it mean? It's all one. Which is funny. It's all one really means. But each one is sort of necessary. If they're doing the same point, they're not coming to add a new idea. Oh, even without chisara, they're all coming to tell you the basic same point that shlichus yad is chayev. But you need to tell me both in the case of Shomer Chinam and in the case of Shomer Sachar. You couldn't just tell me Shomer Chinam because you could have challenged and said just because you're chayev by Shomer Chinam, you're not chayev by Shomer Sachar. Why? Isn't Shomer Chinam a lower level of liability? No. Here's what I would have said. Shomer Chinam has an area of liability higher than a Shomer Sachar. Really? What is that? Well, the Shomer Chinam says it was nignav, and he takes an oath, and it turns out that he was the one who stole it. He pays kefel. Right? People remember that? So that will never happen by a Shomer Sachar. Why will it never happen by a Shomer Sachar? Because if a shomer sacher says nignav, he has to pay the principal. So, but there is one case that a shomer chinam will have a worse punishment than the shomer sacher, pay kefa, which will never happen by a shomer sacher. So therefore, since that is a case that he has a worse, that he can have a higher liability, you can't learn out from shomer chinam to shomer sacher. Okay, the one who says no, of course you can learn out from shomer chinam to shomer sacher. Karna below shvua, adifa mikfela b'shvua, which makes a lot of sense. The principle that you have to pay and you can't take an oath, which is the halacha of a shomer sacher who says nignav, is a weightier liability than the risk of paying kefel for a false oath for a shomer chinam. Another way of saying it is the only reason a shomer chinam pays kefel is it starts from a fundamentally lower liability than a shomer sacher. Because he's exempt for gneva, there's a way that it could ultimately lead to him paying kefel. Okay, so anyway, that's the question. Can you say that anything by shomer chinam you can learn out kal vachomer by shomer sacher, or do you say since a shomer chinam, because of his lower liability, sometimes pays kefel, you can't learn out from shomer chinam to shomer sacher, and it has to say it in both places. So if you say that you could have learned it out, the repetition by shomer sacher is to tell you you're chayev even if you did not actually mechaser it. Okay, we might have to take 2 or more minutes today, but we're getting to the end of the daf. Okay, so the Gemara says like this. Rava Amar, now Rava says, Lo tomar shlichus yad, lo b'shomer chinam, lo b'shomer sacher. You know what? The Torah didn't have to say it either in shomer chinam or in shomer sacher. The Teisim Shoel, just figure out shlichus yad from an analogy to a shoel. Okay, what's the analogy? If I let you borrow my object and you have my permission, what's the halach if you're a shoel? A shoel is chayiv ba'onsin, liable for anything that happens. That's when you're using it with my permission. Shalach bayad, when you go ahead and to take it for your own purposes, okay, then so you should at least be like a shoel. A shoel is sholeach yad with permission. He's using it with permission. You're using it without permission. So chayiv, of course you should be chayiv. Now, of course, there's a little bit of a difference, right? Because we just got through beforehand distinguishing between shlichus yad and shol midas, right? If you're sholeach yad, you're only planning on taking a little bit of the wine. You're not sort of like using the whole wine or whatever. It's not exactly the same. But still, the point is, if when you have a right to use it and borrow it, you're fully liable. When you're using it without permission, whatever form you're using it, as a shoel, as a sholeach yad, certainly you should be liable. Yes.
When I'm a shoel, I'm not allowed to destroy part of it.
Right. So all the more reason that when you are destroying, you should be liable. So that's the point. It's a kal vachomer by analogy to a shoel. Okay. So therefore, the last time, so a show who uses it with permission is chayav. So certainly, if you're supposed to be watching it, and instead you make use of it for yourself, and then certainly, and especially, you use it with actually taking something away. Of course, you should be liable. So lama nemra. So why did the Torah have to therefore tell me that a sholeach yad is chayav? Of course you are. It must be to one tell me that even just intending to use it, even before you got around using it, you're already chayav. The idach and the other thing. So that's why it said. Why did it tell me twice? Don't say, oh, we'll just limit it to the analogy of a shoel and don't go beyond shoel. By a shoel, there's a special halacha, ba'alav yimo lo yishalem. If you're in my employ while I'm borrowing your object and something happens to your object, then I'm exempt. So maybe let's say I'm employing you and I was sholeach yad in your pikadon. So if we only know shlichus yad by analogy to a shoel, well, a shoel in that scenario would be exempt. So don't think that the owners being employed by the shomer would make the shomer exempt by shlichus yad. So therefore, we had to say that it really is a separate category. So you shouldn't say that it says it twice. Okay, so it's Rava saying you could learn it out by analogy by shoel, and it says it twice, once by shomer chinam and once by shomer sacher, to tell you, number one, you don't actually have to take anything away. Just having the intention is enough. You don't need chisaron. And number two, that bialim doesn't make a difference. Now, if you say that by sholeach you actually have to take something away, so hani tartik shlichus yad lamali, why does it have to tell me both by shomer sacher and shomer chinam? Just learn it out by analogy from a shoel. One we already said. To tell me, don't think if you're basing it on analogy of a shoel, don't think if the owners are employed by you, that somehow means you're off the hook. The idach, and the second one, because is not to tell you don't need to be mechaser, because this is the opinion that says you're only chayiv if you actually do take something from it. So what's the second reason? The second time it says shlichus yad in the Torah, l'chidetanya. V'nikra balabais el ha'elohim, was it imlo shalach yado b'im leches re'ehu. So what does that mean? You come to the judges that you did not shalach yad. So what it means is lishvua, that you have to take an oath what happened to it and that you were not shalach yad. Maybe it means that you actually just have a judgment case about that, but you don't actually have to take an oath about it. No, it says shlichus yad in two places. In one place, it tells explicitly that you take an oath. So afkan here too, you take an oath. So the reason it says it twice is to make it clear that it's through an oath and not just through a court case. Okay. So bottom line is that shlichus yad, it's said twice in the Torah. You could have said once, and I could have learned it out. Or I could have learned it out by analogy to a shoel. The reason to repeat it is maybe to tell me even without chisaron. So that's the core debate. Does shlichus yad require chisaron? And then there's these other issues that even with bailim, you're still going to be liable, and that the shlichus yad has to be clarified through a shvua, not just through a court case. But bottom line, the important thing to take away is these three concepts: gzela, taking it, doing a masa kinyan with the intent to keep it all to yourself; shlichus yad, which is doing an act that would constitute an act of kinyan, but you're not trying to keep it all for yourself. You're just trying to use it in a way that's going to be mechaseret. Take some wine, use an object that's going to cause some type of wear and tear. And the question is, do you actually have to use it or just take it with that intent? And then the third case is a shoel shalom midas, that you actually do use something and you're seen as a shoel, and that also leads to a liability, a chayav ba'onsin. And the question how come case 2 and 3 don't overlap sometimes is a good question. Okay, we will continue tomorrow. And we have caught up. Woo!
There's no